It was a quiet day on the planet Xylar. The people had always lived peacefully, minding their own business. The Xylorians were advanced, their cities shining with technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen. But that peaceful existence was about to be shattered. Zelix, a young officer in the Xylorian military, stood at the edge of the great council hall. She gazed out at the horizon, her thoughts far from the usual reports and drills. Something felt different in the air today. The stars above had always felt familiar, comforting, like old friends. But now, something was off. A strange energy rippled through the cosmos, faint but undeniable. The sky shimmered as a large shadow began to form on the far side of their planet. At first, it seemed like a trick of the light, a shift in the stars. But as the shadow grew larger, Zelix's heart began to race. A ship, a massive one, bigger than any Xylorian vessel she had ever seen. It was headed straight for their planet. Zelix rushed inside the council hall, her boots echoing against the smooth marble floors. The elders were gathered in a circle, discussing the day's matters. When she entered, they all turned their eyes toward her. "Zelix," said Elder Kren, his voice calm but filled with curiosity. "What is it? What troubles you?" "There's a ship," Zelix replied, her voice trembling. "It's huge. I don't know what it is, but it's coming closer." A silence fell over the room. The council members exchanged worried glances. The Xylorians had been in contact with many alien species over the years, but none had ever brought a threat like this. There had never been a war, no need for it. Their technology was too advanced to consider conflict. Yet, the ship, it didn't feel like the ships they were used to. It felt wrong, threatening. The elder in charge of defense, General Rin, stood up, his face lined with concern. "Prepare the fleets. We need to understand what this ship is and what it wants." Zelix didn't need to be told twice. She quickly turned and left the room, heading for the hangar where Xylar's defense ships were kept. As she ran, she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. The ship in the sky was too big, too overwhelming. It was like nothing she had ever imagined. The sky above her was no longer calm. A wave of tension spread through the city as the people began to sense something was coming. Fear spread like wildfire as the ship, now visible to all, grew larger in the sky. It was not like any Xylorian ship. It was massive, with sharp, dark edges and a sleek design that suggested power, control, and strength. "We need answers," Zelix muttered to herself, trying to steady her nerves. But deep down, she knew the answer. They weren't here to talk. The air around Xylar's capital city was thick with tension. The massive ship in the sky was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just a ship, it was a giant shadow, looming over the city as if it were the hand of a giant reaching down from the heavens. Zelix stood at the edge of the military hangar, her eyes fixed on the strange vessel, her hands gripping the railing. It wasn't just the size that unsettled her, it was the way the ship moved. It glided silently, like a predator in the night, with no lights, no noise. It seemed to have no need for the usual signs of a ship's presence. No warning, no message, just a steady, silent approach. In the council hall, the elders were already preparing for the worst. They had never seen anything like this before. And even though they had always prided themselves on their peaceful ways, there was no denying the fear growing in their hearts. What was this ship? What did it want? "Zelix," General Rin called out as he entered the hangar. "We've arranged a meeting. We need to make contact with them." Zelix turned and nodded. "I'll be ready. But we need to be careful. There's something about this ship. It's not like anything we've encountered." The general's face was grim. He knew she was right, but there was no time for hesitation. They had to find out who was behind the ship and whether they came as friends or foes. The Xylorians had no true weapons of war. Their defense systems were designed for protection, not battle. But today, that would change. Zelix and the others had no choice but to rely on what they had: speed, intelligence, and hope. Zalix boarded one of the fastest interceptors. She sat in the cockpit, adjusting the controls as the rest of the fleet followed her lead. They were heading toward the unknown ship, a mission filled with uncertainty and fear. The vastness of space stretched out before them, and the closer they got, the more impossible it seemed that they could stand against whatever force awaited them. As they neared the human ship, the strange vessel finally began to communicate. A single, clear message echoed through their ship's communication systems. It wasn't in any language the Xylorians knew, but it was powerful, commanding. There was no mistake. The words were simple. "We are humanity. Prepare to comply." Zalix's heart sank as she listened. Humanity. She had heard of them. Strange creatures from a distant planet, known for their ambition and their hunger for power. But she had never imagined that they would come to Xylor. Never imagined that they would bring their strength to her peaceful world. The message was a warning, not a greeting. A declaration, not a question. The humans were not here to negotiate. They were here to dominate. Zalix's mind raced. The Xylorians had never faced such a thing. What did this mean? What was their next move? It was clear now. The peaceful world of Xylor was about to be changed forever. And Zalix wasn't sure if she was ready for what came next. The entire Xylorian fleet hovered silently in space, waiting for the humans' next move. Zalix's ship was at the front, her hands clenched around the controls. The message had been clear, too clear. We are humanity. Prepare to comply. There was no warmth in the message, no hint of diplomacy. It was direct, commanding, and cold. Zalix stared at the massive human battleship in front of her. It loomed like a giant shadow against the stars, dwarfing her fleet. Its surface was sleek and dark, reflecting no light, moving with a precision that only came with immense control. It was unlike any ship she had ever seen. "We are not here to talk," Zalix muttered to herself. Her breath came in short bursts. The humans weren't interested in peace, and they certainly weren't here to negotiate. They were here to conquer, to take. But why? What did they want from Xylor? "Zalix," General Rin's voice came over her communicator. "We must be prepared for anything. We've never dealt with this kind of situation before. We must respond, but carefully." Zalix nodded, her mind racing. The Xylorians were a peaceful species, their strength in technology and intellect, not in military might. They had always solved problems through discussion, not force. But this was different. The human ship wasn't interested in talks. It wasn't interested in understanding. "We must learn more about them," Zalix said, determination building inside her. "If we can understand them, maybe we can find a way to stop this." General Rin agreed. "We'll send a delegation. You, Zalix, will be the one to make contact. You know our ways best." Zalix's heart raced. She was the one chosen to face humanity's overwhelming power, to meet the alien race that had already made it clear they would not back down. She couldn't help but wonder, though, if they had underestimated the humans. She had heard stories, rumors, of their persistence, their relentless will to win. But now, facing them head-on, Zalix realized how much those rumors had left out. "Prepare yourselves," Zalix said to her crew. "We will not surrender. We will not bow down. But we will try to understand them." With that, Zalix's interceptor ship detached from the fleet and headed toward the human battleship. As she approached, her heart pounded in her chest. The closer she got, the more enormous the ship seemed. It was like an unstoppable force, a machine built for war, and the Xylorians had no choice but to confront it. Suddenly, a new signal buzzed through their communication channels. A voice, cold and clear, echoed in Zalix's cockpit. "Xylorian fleet, you have been warned. Do not resist. Surrender now, and we will ensure your safety. Refuse, and we will show you what happens to those who challenge humanity." Zalix felt a chill run down her spine. There was no room for negotiation in this message. This was an order, a command. She clenched her fists. They may have the power, but we have the will, Zalix whispered, staring out at the giant battleship. Let's see if we can make them understand. Zalix's interceptor sped towards the massive human battleship, her mind focused and her heart racing. As the Zalorian fleet hovered in space, ready for any sign of aggression, the sense of fear and uncertainty among her crew was overwhelming. The human ship was unlike anything they had ever seen, and its power was clear. But Zalix was determined not to back down. There had to be a way to stop this before it went too far. As her ship neared the human vessel, a deep, rumbling noise shook the air. It wasn't just a sound. It was a vibration that seemed to come from the very core of the ship itself. Zalix's eyes widened as the battleship's dark form seemed to pulse with energy, sending ripples through the surrounding space. Then, with a swift, controlled motion, the human ship unleashed its first display of power. A blast of energy shot from the battleship, powerful enough to shake the Zylorian fleet, sending shockwaves through space. The beam hit a nearby asteroid, and within moments, the massive rock shattered into a million pieces. The force of the blast had been so strong, Zalix could feel the shockwave even in the comfort of her ship. She stared at the remnants of the asteroid, disbelief filling her mind. This is impossible, Zalix whispered to herself. She had known the humans were dangerous, but to see their power firsthand was something else entirely. No weapon in the Zylorian arsenal could match that level of destruction. The human captain's voice came through the communication channels again, cold and calculated. Zylorians, this is your final warning. Submit or face the consequences. Zilix gritted her teeth. She couldn't let them dominate Xylor, not without a fight. She quickly transmitted a message back to the human ship, a last-ditch attempt to reason with them. We will not surrender, she said, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. But we are not fools. If this is your strength, we will resist, no matter the cost. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the human captain responded, his voice eerily calm. Very well. You choose your path. But know this, we do not fear you, and we will not stop until we have what we came for. Zilix's fists clenched around the controls. She had tried to reason with them, but it was clear the humans weren't interested in peace. This was about power, pure, unrelenting power. And if they wanted to take Xylor, they would have to go through her. With a fierce determination, Zalix gave the order for the Zylorian fleet to brace for impact. The time for talking was over. The time for battle had begun. As the human battleship loomed closer, the Zylorians made their move. Zalix's crew had prepared for this moment, ready to face whatever the humans threw at them. But deep down, she knew the odds were stacked against them. Humanity's ship was simply too strong. The first volley of energy blasts from the human ship tore through space, heading straight for the Zylorian fleet. Zalix braced herself, her eyes fixed on the incoming fire, knowing that this battle was going to be unlike any other. The battle was already unfolding in front of Zalix. The human ship fired its first round of energy blasts, striking several Zylorian ships with brutal precision. The shockwaves from the blasts shook Zalix's ship, sending tremors through her body. The once peaceful space around them was now filled with the terrifying sounds of war. It was hard to believe that just hours ago, Xylor had been a peaceful world, untouched by conflict. Zalix's mind raced. She had always been trained for defense, not for open warfare. The Zylorians weren't a species built for war. They were thinkers, builders, creators. Their technology was focused on science, exploration, and harmony. But this was different. This was war. And Zalix knew that if they didn't act quickly, the humans would tear through them, one ship at a time. Shields up. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, Zalix shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. She could see the destruction unfolding before her. Zylorian ships were being torn apart, their defensive shields barely holding against the sheer force of the human weapons. The enemy was not only stronger, they were smarter. They anticipated every move the Zylorians made. General Rin's voice crackled over the communicator. Zelix, we can't win this fight head-on. We need to retreat and regroup. There's no shame in it. We need time to think. Zelix clenched her jaw. Retreating wasn't an option. The Xylorians couldn't let their world fall to these humans. No, General. We fight. We can't let them think we'll back down. She wasn't ready to admit it, but the human captain's words echoed in her mind. We do not fear you. The Xylorians might have the heart to fight, but the humans had the strength to win. She had to find another way. We need a new plan. I won't let them take us down like this, Zelix said, her eyes scanning the chaos around her. It was then that she remembered something. The Xylorians had a secret weapon, a small fleet of stealth ships, hidden away for times like this. They had never been used in battle, not once in the history of Xylar. But now, with their backs against the wall, there was no other choice. Send the order, Zelix said firmly. Activate the stealth fleet. The stealth fleet was small, but it was faster than anything the humans could have expected. These ships were designed for speed and surprise, not for heavy firepower. They weren't meant to stand toe-to-toe with a battleship. They were meant to strike quickly, to outsmart and confuse. If anyone could get close to the human ship without being detected, it was the stealth fleet. As Zelix watched the fleet of stealth ships disengage from the main line of battle, she could feel a flicker of hope. This was their chance. If they could infiltrate the human ship, maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to stop the war before it consumed them all. The Xylorians had to move fast. The human ship was strong, but Zelix believed in their ability to outthink their enemies. It was their only chance. She wasn't sure if it would work, but there was no turning back now. The Xylorian stealth fleet moved swiftly through the vast emptiness of space, their ships blending into the shadows of the universe. Zelix's heart beat faster as she watched the small fleet dart toward the human battleship. The stealth ships were fast and agile, designed to slip past enemy defenses unnoticed. But they had never faced a ship like the human battleship. Zelix held her breath, hoping that their speed and silence would be enough. Zelix, we're in position, one of her commanders reported over the communicator. We can approach the battleship undetected, but we'll need to find an entry point. The ship's defenses are still too strong. Zelix nodded, her mind racing. The human battleship was a fortress, equipped with weapons far beyond anything the Xylorians had ever seen. But she couldn't afford to hesitate now. There was no time for second-guessing. They had to act fast before the humans wiped out the rest of their fleet. Find a way inside, Zelix said firmly. We can't destroy them head-on, but we can sabotage them from within. If we can get close enough, we might find a way to take them down. The stealth ships approached the human battleship, their sleek designs slipping past the larger, more obvious targets. Zelix's ship led the way, her crew working in perfect sync to avoid detection. The human ship loomed ahead, its dark surface gleaming under the stars. The closer they got, the more daunting the challenge became. It was like approaching a giant wall of metal and firepower. Suddenly, a flash of light broke the silence. A beam of energy shot out from the human battleship, barely missing one of the stealth ships. Zelix's heart stopped. The humans had detected them. Retreat, Zelix ordered, but it was too late. Another blast hit one of the Xylorian ships, causing it to spiral out of control. The remaining ships scattered, trying to avoid the barrage of fire that followed. Zelix gritted her teeth. The humans were smarter than she had expected. They had expected a surprise attack. The Xylorians couldn't outfight them, but they could still outsmart them. Regroup, Zelix ordered. We need to get to that ship's lower levels. There must be a way inside through their ventilation system. We'll enter undetected. With precision and focus, the remaining Xylorian ships redirected their course, weaving through the defensive fire. Zelix's interceptor led the way, skimming just below the human ship's heavy defenses. They were moving quickly now, faster than the humans could react. The human battleship's response was swift, but the Xylorians had one advantage: speed. Zelix's ship slipped under the hull of the massive vessel and into the shadows. They had made it. They were inside. The tension in Zelix's chest eased, but only slightly. They had crossed the threshold, but this was only the beginning. There was no turning back now. Now we find a way to disable their weapons, Zelix said quietly, staring at the giant human ship's internal systems as her crew began working quickly to infiltrate. The Zylorians had entered the heart of the enemy's fortress. The battle was far from over, but Zelix could feel the spark of hope returning. They were still in the game. They still had a chance. Zelix's heart raced as her ship glided through the dark, shadowed corridors of the human battleship. The Zylorian crew worked quickly and silently, moving with purpose. They had made it inside, but now came the most difficult part: finding a way to disable the human ship's weapons. "We're close," Zelix muttered under her breath as she studied the ship's layout on her display. The ship's power systems were vast, and there were countless layers of security. If they were going to sabotage the weapons, they had to get to the core of the ship's systems. Fast. "We have a problem," one of her officers called out. "The humans have locked down the lower levels. There's no way through without triggering alarms." Zelix frowned, frustration creeping into her thoughts. The humans were relentless. They had anticipated their move and fortified every possible entry point. It was as if they were always one step ahead. "We'll have to get creative," Zelix said, her mind working overtime. "Can we override their system from here?" Her chief technician, an experienced officer named Joran, quickly scanned the ship's control grid. "It's risky, but we might be able to tap into their mainframe. If we can send a command from this terminal, we can unlock the doors without triggering the alarms." Zelix nodded. It was a long shot, but they had no choice. Every second spent in the human ship was another second the rest of the Zylorian fleet could be destroyed. They had to make this work. As Joran worked his controls, Zelix took a moment to look at the large holographic map of the human ship. The human battleship was a behemoth. Its corridors stretched for miles. Its power systems were more advanced than anything the Zylorians had ever encountered, and its weaponry was unmatched. But even with all their strength, Zelix couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were hiding something. "We're in," Joran suddenly announced, snapping Zelix out of her thoughts. "I've overridden the system. We can get to the weapons chamber now." Zelix gave a quick nod. "Move out. Now." The Zylorians moved swiftly, ducking through the narrow passageways of the human ship, staying out of sight as best they could. As they neared the weapons control room, Zelix couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The human ship was a marvel of engineering, efficient, deadly, and powerful, but it also seemed incomplete. Zelix had learned in her training that no ship, no matter how strong, could truly be perfect. There were always weaknesses. "We're here," Joran whispered as the door to the weapons chamber slid open silently. "Let's disable the guns." Zelix nodded, but as they entered the chamber, her eyes widened. The weapons systems were more advanced than they had imagined, and they were designed to be completely secure. There was no easy way to shut them down. It was then that Zelix understood the true extent of the human advantage. The humans had prepared for every possible outcome. They had thought of everything, including this moment. They had made sure that even if someone got inside, they would still have to fight their way out. And now, Zelix realized with a sinking feeling, it wasn't just the ship's weapons they had to worry about. Zelix's pulse raced as she and her crew stood in the heart of the human ship's weapons chamber. They had made it this far, but now the real challenge had begun. The human weapons systems were a maze of technology, designed to withstand everything from sabotage to direct assault. There was no easy way to disable them. The Zylorians were facing a nearly impossible task. "This is impossible," Joran muttered under his breath as he scanned the weapon controls. "There's no way we can break through this. They've locked down every layer of security." Zelix clenched her fists. The human battleship seemed like an impenetrable fortress. She had believed that if the Xylorians could infiltrate the ship, they could disable its weapons. But now, in the face of such overwhelming resistance, she wasn't sure they could succeed. As the Xylorians huddled in the chamber, trying to come up with a new plan, the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. Zelix's eyes widened. The humans had detected them. There was no time left to waste. "Get to the escape route," Zelix ordered. "We need to get out of here before they lock us in." Her crew sprang into action, but just as they turned to leave, a voice suddenly boomed over the intercom. It was the voice of the human captain, calm and commanding. "You've done well to get this far," the captain said, his voice smooth. "But you will not leave this ship. We are not here for a fight, Xylorians. We are here for something far more important." Zelix froze, confusion flooding her thoughts. The humans weren't here to destroy them. What could they possibly want? The captain's voice continued. "You've seen our strength. You've felt our power. But there is something you don't understand. You're not the first species we've encountered. You're not the first to think they could stop us." Zelix's heart pounded. This was not what she had expected. The humans had been relentless in their assault, and yet now they were speaking as though they were offering something else. The captain's voice softened, almost as if he were speaking to an ally. "We don't want war, Zelix. We never did, but we are not afraid of it either. The universe is changing, and you have a choice. Join us, or be swept away by the tides of history." Zelix felt a chill run down her spine. She had thought the humans came to conquer, to crush her people, but now the reality of the situation was dawning on her. Humanity wasn't interested in simply defeating Xylor. They wanted something more. "We don't want to fight," the captain's voice continued. "But we will. If you refuse to see the truth, if you refuse to accept what we offer, then you will fall just like the others before you." Zelix's thoughts swirled. This was not the humanity she had imagined. This wasn't just a force of destruction. It was a force of conviction. The captain spoke with the certainty of someone who knew exactly what he wanted and wasn't afraid to take it. There was no room for negotiation, no room for compromise. As the Xylorians prepared to leave the chamber, Zelix realized that their world, their way of life, could never return to what it once was. Humanity had come to change everything. And now, the Xylorians had to decide: resist and face extinction, or join the humans in whatever future they had planned. The message from the human captain echoed in Zelix's mind. It was clear now. Humanity was not here to negotiate, not here to destroy for the sake of destruction. They were here to change things, to force their way into the future. The choice was no longer about survival. It was about submission or defiance. Zelix stared at the corridor ahead, her mind spinning with the weight of the captain's words. Her crew, her people, had never faced a force like this. The humans had come to Xylor not just with weapons, but with an iron will, a conviction that struck deeper than the most advanced technology. It was a battle of strength and philosophy now. But Zelix wasn't ready to give in. "We can't let them think we'll surrender," Zelix said, her voice steady but her heart pounding. She turned to General Rin, who had joined her in the weapons chamber after the captain's message. "We need to make our stand. We fight for our freedom, for our way of life." The general nodded, his face grim but resolute. "But we've seen their strength, Zelix. We can't win this head-on. We're outmatched." Zelix took a deep breath, her eyes locking with the general's. "Then we don't fight them head-on. We fight with everything else we have. We fight with strategy. We fight with our minds." Zelix's crew was already preparing for the final push. The time for direct confrontation had passed. They couldn't outpower the humans, but they could outthink them. Zelix's plan was risky, dangerously risky, but it was the only option left. The Xylorians would have to use the one thing they had left that the humans could not predict. Surprise. "We'll go back to the lower levels," Zelix ordered. "If we can disable their power systems, we might be able to shut down their weapons." They're too powerful for us to confront directly, but if we can weaken them, we'll have a chance. The crew moved quickly, with Zelix leading the charge. They navigated through the ship's corridors, avoiding detection as best they could. Every step they took, every movement they made, was crucial. The human ship was like a living thing, a massive entity with eyes and ears everywhere. But Zelix's crew was determined to keep moving forward. As they reached the lower levels, Zelix's heart raced. The power systems of the human ship were located in the heart of the vessel, protected, fortified, and nearly impossible to reach. But Zelix had a plan. She and her team had been working on a way to bypass the human defenses, a plan that could take down the ship's power without them ever knowing what happened. "We're close," Zelix whispered as they reached a large metal door. Beyond it lay the core of the human ship's power systems. If they could breach it, they could disable the entire battleship. But there was no time to waste. They had reached the final moment. The Zylorians had only one chance to win this fight, one chance to stop the humans from taking their planet. It was a gamble, but it was all they had left. Zelix gave the order, and the door to the power core opened. Inside, the hum of the human ship's engine systems filled the air. But as the Zylorians stepped forward, they knew one thing for sure. They were fighting for their survival. And they wouldn't go down without a fight. The Zylorians stood at the heart of the human battleship, their mission clear but their chances uncertain. Zelix's crew moved quietly through the power core, their hands working quickly and silently to disable the ship's energy systems. The humming of the engines was constant, a reminder of the sheer power behind this ship, power that could crush them all if they didn't succeed. Zelix kept her focus on the task at hand. Every moment was crucial. If they could just knock out the ship's power, the humans would be left vulnerable. The Zylorians had no chance in a direct battle, but they had the advantage of knowledge. They knew how to break things down, how to understand technology, and how to use their intelligence to outwit even the most powerful forces. "We're in," Joran said quietly, his voice filled with both excitement and fear. "I've overridden the core's power systems. It's only a matter of time before we shut it down." Zelix felt a wave of relief wash over her. They had done it. The human ship's weapons and shields would be useless without the power to run them. The Zylorians had their chance. But then, the message from the human captain echoed in her mind again. "Join us, or be swept away." Zelix's fingers hovered over the control panel. The humans had made it clear. They weren't here to destroy, not in the way she had expected. They weren't just invaders, they were conquerors, but with a purpose. A new order, one that would reshape the galaxy. "What happens if we shut it down?" Joran asked, sensing the change in the air. "What do we do now, Zelix?" Zelix stared at the control panel, torn between two paths. The first was clear. Shut down the power, weaken the humans, and force them to leave Zylor in defeat. But the second path was unknown. It was risky, even dangerous. The humans had come for something more than just conquest. They had come to build an empire, and Zylor could be part of it if they were willing to accept their new place in the universe. Zelix's mind raced as she weighed the choices. The Zylorians had always valued their independence. They had fought for peace, not for control. But the humans had brought a message of change. Was it possible that this change could lead to something greater, something better for Zylor, for all the galaxy? "Zelix," Joran's voice interrupted her thoughts. "What do we do?" She turned to face him, her expression firm but thoughtful. "We can't stop them by force, but maybe we don't have to. Maybe the real answer is in understanding them, in working with them." Zelix walked to the control panel, her fingers hovering over the switch. Then, with a deep breath, she made her choice. Instead of shutting the power down completely, she sent a message back to the human captain. "We're not here to fight," she said, her voice steady. "But we won't submit either. We'll work with you, or we will make our own path." For the first time since the humans arrived, Zelix felt a flicker of hope. Maybe the future wasn't about destruction. Maybe it was about building something new together. The message was sent, and as Zelix and her crew prepared to face whatever came next, they knew one thing for sure. The galaxy was changing, and Xylor would have to decide where it fit into this new world.